Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Westwood, and I'm here today with senior political correspondent David Drucker. And David, let's talk about Trump. Again, he has now made an endorsement in the Ohio Senate primary, endorsing JD Vance. Do you think that is going to make a significant difference in that race?
Well, polling already shows that it has made a difference. Depending on whose poll you believed, JD Vance was either sort of stuck in the middle of the pack, not way down but not way up, or he was sort of tied for first with a couple of other candidates. We saw a Fox News poll after the endorsement that showed him in front by 5, only at 23%, still a lot of undecided voters. So it's by no means a sure thing. But we have seen in a state like Ohio, where Republican voters really do like the former president, his ability to take a candidate who wasn't necessarily not doing well, but was sort of struggling to break through and enable him to break through. And now this contest is all about whether or not it's JD Vance on top or somebody else. And this is the first big test for Trump and his 2022 endorsements. Yes, he endorses a lot. Yes, he'll win most of them. He's already won a lot of them. But the ones that matter are the ones that are competitive. And we have seen that he's not omnipotent. When he backs candidates that don't have the chops on their own to compete, he cannot save them. But when he takes a candidate with some raw ability, raw appeal, who's been doing the work on the ground, he can help elevate them, particularly in states where he's got a good relationship with grassroots Republicans. So a lot of eyes are going to be on the Ohio Senate primary. No sure thing for JD Vance, but it could put Trump off to a really good start, with primaries for Senate in Pennsylvania coming up, for governor in Georgia coming up, and others where it might be a little bit more difficult for his candidates to do well.
Kevin McCarthy aligned Super PAC is now revealing where it's going to spend an enormous sum of money heading into the midterms. What are some of your takeaways from where that spend is going?
Yeah, it's $125 million in what they call an initial ad buy, not the full ad buy. Mm-hmm. You know, 2 years ago at this time, when Congressional Leadership Fund put out their initial ad buy, it was for $43 million. And a lot of the money raised for the Super PAC, even though Kevin McCarthy cannot coordinate with the Super PAC, he can raise money for the Super PAC. And it's really, I think, another example of what a prolific fundraiser he is, and one of the reasons why 6 months before Election Day he's able to weather this storm he's been dealing with lately, where the Jonathan Martin Alexander Burns book, This Will Not Pass, has reported Kevin McCarthy on tape criticizing President Trump, former President Trump, criticizing some of his Republican colleagues who are a little bit incendiary at times. This was right after January 6th, but the tapes are the tapes, and some people have asked, will he survive his relationship with Trump? Will his relationship with Republicans in the House survive? Because if they win the majority, he's got to win 218 votes for Speaker. And I think one of the reasons why Kevin McCarthy can and is likely to survive all of this, at least initially in the short term, unless it were to become a huge problem, is because nobody else is or can really do what he's doing at the present time, and that is raise all this money that's going to put all of them in the majority. And it's one of the reasons why some Republicans who might have the ability to replace McCarthy are not going to try and take him out. And one of the reasons why, even if there's some frustration in the House Republican conference, because who wants to deal with this close to an election when your opponent is, basically hanging themselves, they're going to say, yeah, well, he's doing the nuts and bolts things correctly. Why mess with a good thing? And then we'll deal with it later. So that's why I think the Congressional Leadership Fund's fundraising and initial ad buy is very significant, on top of which Republicans only need to win 5 seats to win the majority. And with all this money and a favorable political environment, I think the question is going to turn to very quickly, just how big is this majority going to be?
Speaking of that, finally, are there any seats where Republicans are on defense, or are they pretty much totally on offense when it comes to the spending in general?
So they're on defense in a few. It's likely to be a few seats where either you have a member not doing his job, or it's just one of those tough districts and things aren't going to go his way or her way. But by and large, this is going to be all about Republicans on offense. Of that $125 million in the initial ad buy, $111 million has been reserved to go on offense in Democratic-controlled districts. Only $14 million is for defensive measures. So Republicans are just in a really good spot right now. This would be a much different story if Democrats still controlled that sort of like 20-seat majority that they had after the 2018 elections. Then you're looking at, okay, you got to win 20. How much beyond 20 can you get? It's a 5-seat majority. They're just, I mean, they have to win next to nothing to win the majority itself, and then everything else becomes gravy. Although, then when we turn to the question of, is Kevin McCarthy going to get 218 votes for Speaker, I would still predict he gets it. But the bigger the majority, the less mischief members like Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and others can cause him when they inevitably vote for Donald Trump or somebody other than McCarthy for Speaker.
Well, David, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more reporting from David and the rest of the political team at washingtonexaminer.com.